Welcome to RSG Insider, where we discuss issues facing local jurisdictions. I'm Tara Matthews, and I'm joined here today with Dominique Clark to talk about underwriting. Maybe, Dominique, you can take a brief moment to describe your experience and background in this area.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a director at RSG. I've been with the firm 10 years, and I've been underwriting developments for the last 7 years. I've underwritten various types of developments, but today I can just talk about underwriting affordable housing developments.
So this word we're using, underwriting, what does that mean?
Yeah, so I think most people who know the term underwriting know it in the context of qualifying for a loan, like a mortgage. So before a lender will give you a mortgage, they're going to ask you for a lot of documentation. They're going to verify your income, your assets, your debt, credit history. They're going to look at the property that you want to buy. So in the context of affordable housing, underwriting is evaluating the financial feasibility of a proposed affordable housing development, so that usually we can help a public agency determine whether to contribute funds or land to the development.
Public agency and contributing. Let's talk a little bit more about that. So maybe for those that aren't familiar, can you describe a little bit maybe why a local jurisdiction would need to contribute to an affordable housing project?
Sure. So developing affordable housing is incredibly challenging because going into it, the developer knows that they're not going to generate enough income to cover the cost of constructing the development. So, like a typical development, affordable housing developers usually get a construction loan, but the size, the amount of a construction loan is based on what the development is going to be valued at once it's built. For multifamily development, value is based on the rents that it generates. So with affordable housing, the rents are intentionally set below market rate, which means that the construction loan is probably going to be a lot less than the construction costs. So that results in a funding gap. And in order to fill that gap, affordable housing developers typically have to compete for funding from various sources, such as federal and state tax credits, maybe some grants and loans from a local public housing agency, maybe grants from a bank. And it's also not uncommon for the affordable housing developers to go to the city or the county where the development is proposed to be located and ask them to contribute as well, especially if that jurisdiction is really excited about the project and they want to make it happen, right? So before local agencies respond to the developer's request, they might hire a consultant like RSG to underwrite the development and to analyze what the developer is proposing to build and also their request for financial assistance.
Oh, thank you. That provides really good context on what affordable housing underwriting is. You had mentioned cities and counties participating in affordable housing projects. Do cities and counties have the financial resources available to approve these requests from developers to contribute to the affordable housing developments?
Yeah, that's a great question. So before 2012, California jurisdictions had a consistent stream of funding dedicated to affordable housing through tax increment financing used by redevelopment agencies. But redevelopment agencies in California were dissolved in 2012, and that was a significant blow to the affordable housing industry in our state. So now jurisdictions typically have limited to maybe no funding dedicated to affordable housing, but there are a minority of cities and counties that have creatively figured out ways to still be able to assist affordable housing developers, maybe by assessing fees or leveraging funds from the state. So some of those jurisdictions, they might release notice of funding availability or NOFAs. They might release those from time to time, in which they're inviting the affordable housing developer community to basically compete for the funds and by offering proposals based on what they want to build. So for example, San Diego County, they release one or more NOFAs almost every year, and RSG assists them with underwriting all of the development proposals that they get to help them decide which ones to fund.
So, why is affordable housing underwriting important?
Also a good question. So I would say affordable housing underwriting is very important because, as we all know, the need for affordable housing is so great, especially here in California. But the resources that public agencies have to help assist with getting them developed are so limited. So if a public agency is going to invest in affordable housing development, you want to make sure that it's a development that aligns with the community's needs and that it's financially feasible. And by that, by financially feasible, I mean that they are likely going to be able to secure the other proposed funding sources that they need to get that development across the finish line. And also that when the development is done, it's going to generate enough income to cover the operating expenses and the debt service, so there's no issues down the line.
So what kind of things does RSG analyze or evaluate when underwriting an affordable housing project?
So just like a private equity firm does a lot of due diligence before they make any investment, RSG assists public agencies with trying to estimate their return on investment or ROI before investing in affordable housing development. So we help them answer questions like, for every dollar that this public agency is going to contribute, how many units are going to get developed? Or we might also say, in the first 55 years, how much of the public agency loan is going to be repaid so that they can then invest in more affordable housing developments. But unlike many private equity firms, public agencies care about more than financial returns, right? So we also look at their social returns, if you will. So we also ask questions like, well, how many residents are going to be housed in this development? Or are there any units that are dedicated for particularly vulnerable populations like seniors, veterans, large families, folks living with disabilities, or folks experiencing homelessness? And we also ask what supportive services are going to be provided to these residents. So our goal is to help public agencies figure out how to have the greatest impact for every dollar that they're investing.
And is there anything unique about how RSG underwrites affordable housing projects?
I can think of a few things. I think one thing that sets RSG apart in how we approach underwriting is our staff. So we're very fortunate in that we have a staff with a depth of experience. So we have former developers on staff. We also have folks who used to work for public agencies that contributed to affordable housing. So we're able to look at development's strengths and weaknesses from different lenses. We also have staff throughout both Northern and Southern California, so we're familiar with different real estate markets. The second thing I would say that sets us apart is that we're very thorough in our analysis, but we're very concise in our findings and recommendations. We understand that before a public agency can participate in an affordable housing development, they typically have to get approval from a board or a city council. So we want to distill the key information to help them make a decision, but we also want to be able to provide them a detailed supporting analysis so that they can defend their decision. And then finally, I would say that we are very aware of the role of affordable housing in the grander landscape of community development. So we don't only work in underwriting, we don't even only work on affordable housing. We do a lot of work in economic development and fiscal health. So we're very aware that affordable housing is important, not just because it addresses homelessness, but it also provides a place for working professionals like teachers and healthcare workers to be able to afford a place close to where they work, which is really important for employee retention, but also just to increase their quality of life. And we also understand that when folks have affordable housing, they can have increased spending in their local economy, which is important for any community to thrive. So we get that it's all related.
So it sounds like you have a lot of experience in this and have underwritten quite a few projects. Can you talk a little bit about what you enjoy about the underwriting process?
Yeah, I love that question. There's a lot that I enjoy about underwriting. I would say I enjoy getting a sneak peek at affordable housing developments that are coming down the pipeline. The need is so great for affordable housing, and it's really exciting to see all the developers who are stepping up to try to meet the challenge of bringing more of the units that we need. And it's cool to see how creative they're getting. They're working with other developers to get projects done. They are using more cost-effective materials. It's also exciting to see all the amenities that they're including in developments now for affordable housing, like childcare centers and walking paths to transit station, solar generation to offset residents' utility bills. So all of that's just really exciting to get a front row seat and to see that before everyone else does. I think I also enjoy the challenge of underwriting because no project is the same, no community is the same. So even though we have a very structured underwriting process, we always have to customize it to the particularities of that development and that community. And so that's always keeping us on our toes, and it makes it fun. And we also have to stay up to date on legislation, which is always changing and impacting affordable housing, and affordable housing finance is always changing. So we love being able to stay in the know so we can advise our clients on how the latest news impacts them. But I would say the best part of underwriting is when a project that we've underwritten gets completed and it's ready for occupancy. So I love seeing the pictures of the ribbon cutting ceremonies and reading the articles with quotes from people who are moving into the development. I mean, affordable housing is not easy at all, but it's incredibly rewarding, and it's exciting and meaningful to be part of the process to secure folks a stable and affordable home.
Yeah, it's no surprise, that we're experiencing a housing crisis in the state of
Right.
California right now. So it sounds like this work is really important to try to get more units developed. With that in mind, what would you like to see in the future for affordable housing?
Yeah, so I mean, we need a lot more housing in California. We need all types in a state as diverse as ours. We need pretty much every type of housing there is, whether it's ADUs or manufactured housing or duplexes or large multifamily complexes. We need it all, and we need it at all income levels. But I think if I had to choose what I'm hoping to see in the future, I would say there's been a lot of focus recently with all of the issues surrounding homelessness in our state, of state funding focus on providing housing for the folks with the lowest income. We call it extremely low income or very low income, which is really important, and we need to continue doing that. But I'm excited that there's been a lot of conversation lately about what is called the missing middle. So it's the folks who make too much money to qualify for the housing for extremely and very low income, but they still don't make quite enough to comfortably afford market rate housing. So I'm excited to see how developers are going to figure out how to serve that demographic. I'm also really excited to see more ownership affordable housing, which takes a lot of creativity to figure out the financing, but it would be exciting to see more folks being able to get into home ownership and own their land. But I think ultimately, when I think about the future, I think we just have to be adaptable because things are always shifting. I mean, just like the housing that was built 50 years ago doesn't always make sense today. I think in 50 years, we'll say the same thing about today. So things are just going to constantly shift. And that's part of the fun of affordable housing is I think we just have to be able to move with what's going on in the trends and to also keep a pulse on what's happening locally as far as housing needs, to make sure that we're always providing affordable housing that makes sense for each community.
Well, thank you so much for all of your insight, and thank you for tuning in on our discussion on affordable housing underwriting.